Uh, Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. I have a graphic that I'd like displayed and, without objection, entered into the record. It is simply a plot of the number of manufacturing jobs in the United States over the last several administrations. It's interesting to look at the trend here. That you see, for example, in the Kennedy administration, we had the strongest period of job growth in our country's history. In the Kennedy and Johnson administrations. Then in the Nixon-Ford administrations, the number of manufacturing jobs dropped. It went up during the Carter years, down during the Reagan years, down further during the first Bush administration, roughly level during the Clinton administration, and then we suffered a catastrophic drop due to the policies of the second Bush administration. We now are beginning to grow manufacturing jobs again, largely by returning to the policies that have historically supported strong growth of U.S. manufacturing. You know, I'm best known as being, I guess, the last PhD scientist in Congress, but I'm also a manufacturer. The company that my younger brother and I started with $500 from my parents now manufactures the majority of theater lighting equipment in the United States. We do hardware, software, sheet metal painting, customer support, and we've kept all those jobs in the Midwest, which is something I'm extremely proud of. And so as much as anything, it was this collapse that got me to leave my career in science and in business to go into one to try to make a difference here. Because you can see it makes a difference what the policies are. You know, both parties talk as though their policies are pro-job, pro-growth, pro-manufacturing, but you can see there's a real difference in the actual result. And the statistics on the number of administrations, the number of times we've gone back and forth between what we support. And as a scientist, I think the conclusions here are pretty clear. I leave it up to the audience or the students here to deduce what the color coding on the arrows means. And so actually, with that out of the way, there are a couple of things. It's interesting actually to talk about what was responsible for this tremendous drop, where we lost over a third of our manufacturing jobs in the last decade. The three biggest causes of that, in my mind, are first and foremost currency manipulation. We let China into the World Trade Organization without any agreement that they not manipulate their currency, and U.S. manufacturers, as a result, had a significant artificial cost disadvantage for most of a decade, for longer than a decade now. We had also a wave of subsidized or guaranteed credit for exporters in other countries that, frankly, we did not match. That is the subject of this hearing, whether guaranteed export credit is actually an important countervailing thing that we have to do. In a perfect world, we would not need the Export-Import Bank. But I think it provides, in the presence of subsidized credit from around the world for their exports, I think it is essential. My attitude is very much that we should put down our weapon when they put down theirs and not before. The third factor, of course, is the enormous tax breaks for those already wealthy that happened during the Bush administration, where those already wealthy, instead of reinvesting their productive assets back into the United States, simply turned the money over to their money managers, who more and more invested that money offshore. Very different than what happened during the Kennedy administration, for example, when we had very different tax rates. But since we're concentrating on the second item there, the credit, the guaranteed credit for exports, I have a couple of questions for Chairman Hochberg. First, you'd received some criticism earlier in this hearing about your dealings with foreign state-owned enterprises. And do you run a profit or a loss in your dealings with foreign state-owned enterprises?
Well, we run an overall profit at the agency, and we turn that over to the taxpayers every October.
Okay, and does that include your dealings with
Yes,
foreign-owned enterprises?
it certainly does.
Okay, so the taxpayer is better off because of your dealings with foreign state-owned enterprises. And the second thing is I'm increasingly concerned with these 11th hour reauthorizations that you are suffering through. It seems to me that creates exactly the kind of uncertainty that ruins deals, drives equipment purchases to foreign competitors. What kind of impact along those lines might you have seen already because of the brinksmanship going on here?
Well, we've already seen, we had one testimony last year from Steve Wilburn that lost a deal to the Philippines that was taken over by the South Korea, and we've also seen banks pull back and insurance brokers already pull back and deny credit to small businesses.
Okay, thank you. It looks like I'm out of time. I yield back.